Hacking web application. So in that we have some hacking methodology. That is web application hacking methodology. So this is the hacking methodology, and if you see, it is a stepwise methodology we have, and it is starting from the reconnaissance part. So first, what we do the footprinting and footprinting the web infrastructure. So what we do first is to footprint the web infrastructure. Now, web infrastructure footprinting is the first step in web application hacking, and it helps attackers to select victims and identify vulnerable web applications. So what attacker do first? Server discovery. Discover the physical server that hosts web applications. So first we should discover the server which is actually hosting the site or application. Then service discovery. Discover the service running on web servers that can be exploited as attack path for web app hacking. Then server identification. In this, grab server banners to identify the make and version of the web server softwares. Then hidden content discovery. Extract content and functionality that is not directly linked or reachable from the main visible content. So this footprinting, what we have done already, that is a footprinting topic. Now footprinting web infrastructure also. In this we have server discovery. For server discovery, gives information about the location of the servers and ensure that the target server is alive on internet. For that, attacker can use WhoisLookup. WhoisLookup utility gives information about the IP address of web server and DNS names. WhoisLookup tools are these online tools. We have Tamos, we have search Netcraft, we can go for the whois.net, we can go for dnsstuff.com. These are online resources which we can use to do the footprinting about the servers, IP address and DNS names. Then we can go for DNS integration. In DNS integration provides information about the location and type of servers. These are again the same. We can go for the network tools, we can go for DNSStuff, webmaster and domain tools. It will give you detailed information about the server. Then we can go for port scanning. Now once we get the available servers, we know the technology, then we try to scan the ports. So port scanning attempt to connect a particular set of TCP or UDP ports to find out the service that exists on the server. We can do it by using the Nmap tool, or we can do that by using these other tools like NetScan Tools Pro, Advanced Port Scanner or HPing. So we can find out what are the ports available on that particular server. Then we go for service discovery. Service discovery, that means scan the target web server to identify common ports that web servers use for different services. So we'll scan the port to get the services they are running. Like for example, if the port 80 is there, if the port 80 is running, that means World Wide Web and standard port. This is the port for World Wide Web, that is internet, HTTP. So if it is port 80 is there, that means HTTP services are running. 81, that means it is the alternate port for this HTTP protocol. 88 is for the Kerberos, 443 is for the secure HTTP, it is HTTPS. 900, it is for IBM Web Server Administration Client. 2301, it is Compact Insight Manager. 2381, it is Compact Insight Manager over SSL. So on, these are the different well-known ports. By the help of ports, when we see these ports available on those particular servers, that means these are the technologies, or they are using these kind of services. How we can get that? We can use port scanning tools like Nmap, NetScan Pro tool, SendCat browser to identify the services act as attack path for web application hacking. So this will be like attacking path. So the attacker can use these services to do the attack on the particular web application or server. Then server identification by using the banner. So attacker can do what? It can try to grab the banner to check which type of server it is or what technology it is using, to identify it, to analyze the server response header field to identify the make, model and version of the web server software. So for that, attacker can use telnet command, or also it can use netcat command also. Now these commands will do what? It will send a request for the server, and whatever the response comes, it will grab the request, and by the grabbing of that request, it can show you the technology it is using. We can use telnet, we can use netcat, or we can use the graphical tool IDserve, or we can use the online tool which is netcraft. So we can use these tools to get the information about the server. We have already did this in the footprinting part. We have did it on the footprinting topic previously. Then in the methodology, detecting web app firewalls and proxies on the target sites. Now for detecting the proxies, determine whether your target site is routing your request through a proxy server. Proxy server generally adds certain headers in the response header field. Use this trace method of HTTP 1.1 to identify the change the proxy server made to the request. So basically, when your request, when we are sending the request to the web server, and if the web server is sending the response and through the firewall or through the proxy server, then it will add, each proxy server adds a unique header into it, a header into the response. As you can see, it is saying here via this X forwarded for this proxy connection. So it is actually adding some extra header into it, into the response. So when you check the response from the server, so we can say that it is coming from the proxy. Then detecting web app firewall. This web application firewall, that is WAF, prevents web application attack by analyzing the HTTP traffic. Determine whether your target site is running web app firewall in front of a web application. Check the cookies response of your request, because most of the web app firewalls add their own cookie in the response. So we can use WAF detection tools such as WAF WOOF to find which web app firewall is running in front of application. So if any application is running the web app firewall, then we can see, and we can detect by using these tools. What these tools do, it will try to see the cookies information, because in the header, when the response comes, then what these firewalls, they add extra response in the cookie, it adds some extra response into the response coming from the server. We can use this WAF WOOF tool from the Kali Linux. We have this tool available in the Kali Linux. We can use it to check.
Yes, sir.
So this is a tool available in Kali Linux. It is WAF WOOF. It is actually not O, it is actually 00. So W00F, and these are the options we have with this. Now very simple, if we want to do some scanning, so we'll use this WAF WOOF, and then we'll provide the address. Let's say I want to test google.com. Here it is saying no WOOF detected by the generic detection, so it is not detecting here. We can try the other sites. Okay, this one is not connected. So it is the tool, very simple. We can use this normally. I will try verbose mode. So there is no, it is saying that it is not there. So if some site is having it, so it will show that this is the, it is available there. Otherwise it will say there is no, or it is not available. Then in footprinting we can see the hidden content discovery. Discover the hidden content and functionality. This is not reachable from the main visible content to exploit user privilege within the application. It allows an attacker to recover backup copies of live files, configuration files and log files containing sensitive data, backup archives containing snapshot of files within the web root, new functionality which is not linked to the main application, etc. So how it can do that? It can do that by using the web spidering. Web spiders automatically discovers the hidden content and functionality by parsing HTML form and client-side JavaScript requests and responses. These are, we can these spiders, we can use these tools like web spider tools. We have OWASP, Z Attack Proxy, we have Bobsuit, we have WebScrap. These are all, these are the web spiders tools. They do check all the response coming from the server and try to see or try to parse all the HTML files and also JavaScripts which is running on the client side. Then attacker direct the spidering. Attacker accesses all of the application functionality and uses an intercepting proxy to monitor all requests and responses. The intercepting proxy parses all of the application responses and reports the content and functionality it discovers. That tool is what? Z Attack Proxy. So it will do what? It will check all the responses coming from the servers. It will sit in the proxy mode, sniffing mode, and then it will check all the responses coming from the server and try to see. It will intercept all this and try to see the content. It will try to see the content to discover the functionality it is. Then we can use the brute forcing. This is brute forcing means it is using the automation tools such as Bobsuit to make huge number of requests to the web server in order to guess the names or identify of hidden content and functionality. So it can use this, it can do manually brute forcing on the server and sending the crafted request to get the response. Web spidering using, we have Bobsuit. We can do this by using the Bobsuit. First, configure your web browser to use the Bobsuit as a local proxy. Then access the entire target application visiting every single link URL possible and submit all the application forms available. Then browse the target application with JavaScript enabled and disabled and with cookies enabled and disabled. Then check the sitemap generated by the Bob proxy and identify any hidden application content or functions. Continue these steps recursively until no further content or functionality is identified. Now this is what it is doing manually. Like first it is doing what? First, how do we will use the Bobsuit by changing the proxy of our server, our web browser, and then from there we can use this Bobsuit and then access the entire target application visiting every single link. So we will go to page, we go to the application and then we'll try to click on every link. Now when we click on the link, our request will go from the browser, it will go to the Bobsuit, and in the Bobsuit we can see that request and it will store here all those requests. Then what? We can manually identify or check each and every request and every responses from there, and then we can do we can enable and disable this JavaScript also. We'll enable the script and run all the check all the links and then disable the JavaScript and then check the all links. Then also we'll try to disable cookie and enable the cookie to check all the links. For example, okay, so this is Bobsuit. I have started in the Kali Linux. Now when you start, you will go to proxy, and in the proxy options we can see what is the proxy it is running. It is running proxy for the local host 127.0.0.1 and the port number is 8080. Now we can configure our browser to support to send a request on this proxy address, and for that what we will do, we will start the browser here. I'm opening Firefox. And in the Firefox, I'm going to settings. Network settings, and in the network setting I will go for proxy, manual proxy, and proxy address will be 127.0.0.1 and the port number will be 8080. Now whatever the request I will send from this browser, it will go to that proxy address, and on that proxy address Bob Suite is sitting on that proxy address to intercept all the traffic. So Bob Suite is sitting on here, and here in this proxy we can check the intercept. Now intercept is on, you can make it off and on. Now whatever we will browse from our browser, it will send the request here in this Bob Suite. So let's say I will go to some site here. I will go to Amazon. Now it is saying did not connect potentially because of this proxy. Okay, this is because of that list. Now this is because of those secure sites which is in the list of these browsers. So because of those browsers have the list for those famous sites, they will not allow us to go there if the certificate is mismatched. It is not matching the certificate because we are using the proxy. Now when I open this site, Certified Hacker, it is now showing this here. It is intercepting, this Bob Suite is intercepting the request and response. It is saying that this is the get request, do you want to forward it or drop it? And you can also change it. I will forward this normally. And in the background you can see it is sending this. Now it is saying what unknown host. Okay, I think I have not given the right name. Now it is going to this site. I was misspelled the site, and this is the site. Now the interception is on, and you can see what it is intercepting here. Now when I click any site here, any link, it will again show me the request here. Now whether I want to forward it, I want to drop it, and what actions I want to do, I have these different options. I can send this to intruder, repeater, sequencer, composer, decoder, reset in the browser. I can use the engagement tools, change the request method, change the body encoding, copy the URL. I can copy it to file, paste from the file, save item, and I will say don't intercept this request, do intercept this response to this request, and this is the response. This is the response from that request. Now we have to see all those responses to see the technology what it is using. And this is the history of request we have sent. So just like that, this is total manual, like you have to see each and every request and responses to get the information about the technology what they are using or the content. So by doing this we can do interception, and or we can see whatever we have intercepted. So under this target section you can see what we have intercepted here in this side. We have seen this, we have seen this. Under this we got these requests. You can see here this is the request and this is the response from that request. These are the requests, request, response, and here you can see some hidden objects. These are responses, these are requests. So this is the request, this is the request we sent, and then this is the request and this is the response. So we can see, look for the request and the response, and for carefully scrutinize all these to get the information about the content or hidden content. So doing this is what manual thing. Then we can use the web crawling by Mozenda Web Agent Builder. We can use this tool also. This Mozenda Web Agent Builder crawls through a website and harvests pages of information. The software will support logins, login results, logins, result index, Ajax, borders, and others. The extracted data can be accessed online, exported, and used through an API. Now this tool will do what? It will do it automatically for you. In a Bob suite we are doing it manually. Here we can do it automatically. It will do scroll the website for us, and it will generate lots of pages. It will harvest pages of information. It will check the login support, result index, Ajax, borders, and everything. Now these tools, which is doing online thing, automatic thing, we can use these tools also. Now most of these graphical tools are not free, so you will get some trial version in it. Now next step in the hacking methodology is attack the web server. First you have gathered the informations about the server by doing the footprinting. We know what is the server, what is the IP address, what is the location, what is the technology it is using. Now we can go for attacks. Now hacking web servers in this, after identifying the web server environment, scan the server for known vulnerabilities using any web server vulnerability scanner. Then launch the web server attack to exploit the identified vulnerabilities, and launch the denial of service attack against the web server. So first we'll try to hack the web server by first scanning for the vulnerability. We can use the URL scan tool to get the vulnerability of the sites. We can use the Nikto. These are available in the in our Kali Linux. We can use the Nessus. This is a graphical tool. Then we have this Equentix web vulnerability scanner. It is also a graphical tool. Then we can use the web inspect. We can use all these tools to see the vulnerabilities. or this is what the online tool which will do what, which will try to directly scan the site to get the vulnerabilities. Now if you not able to do the direct scanning, then what we can do, we can go for the vulnerability research. We can go to the internet and try to find out the vulnerabilities related to that particular application or particular web application or web server. We can go to Google hacking database also to find out the vulnerability. Otherwise these tools will do the online scan. Like this web inspect, this will do what, it will do directly scan on the site. This identifies the security vulnerabilities in the web application. It runs interactive scans using a sophisticated user interface. Attacker can exploit identified vulnerabilities to carry out web services attack. Now these tools are made for the system administrators, for the security administrator to scan their own application for vulnerabilities. But attacker can also use this to find out the vulnerability on the other applications. We have this Nikto tool which we can use to scan vulnerabilities online directly. So if we have any site or URL, so we can go for vulnerability checking directly, giving the URL and directly connecting the URL. We can do this by using Nikto, and then we will mention host, and then we will mention the URL. Like for example, I will try to scan google.com, and now it is trying to scan the site for vulnerabilities. And if it is find any, so it will show you here. Now what is happening here, if you see clearly, I will stop this and show you one more other thing. Okay, it is almost done. No, and it is not going to do anything. Now what it is doing here, it has started this, and it is getting the robot.txt file there. It is saying that robots.txt file is there, and it is saying that this entry, this directory is not non-forbidden or redirect. It is or a redirect HTTP code. So in the robots.txt, these directories are not forbidden. So it is showing that, it is saying uncommon header link found with the content of this. So not much we have in the Google, we have only these which is not forbidden in this robot.txt file. Robot.txt file is to forbidden all those directories which a developer don't want any crawler to scan. So this crawler is seeing this directory, but that directory is not present in the robot.txt. So it is saying that it is not forbidden in the robot.txt file. So it is saying that these directories are not forbidden, we can scan these directories. It will take some time and it will do scan those things. I will try to do one more. This is my local server and local site. This is our local site. So it is configured on this server, it is on Apache, it is configured on Apache on Windows, and with this PHP version, and it is scanning, and it will take some time to do the scanning. Now what it is saying here, it is getting something from this site. It is saying this cross-site scripting protection header is not defined. So this header can hint to the user agent to protect against some form of cross-site scripting. Uncommon header link is there in this page, Then we have this, no CGI directory is found. Then it is saying Apache mode negotiation is enabled with multi-views, so which allow attackers to easily brute force file names. And we can see this here. The following alternative for index were found, index.php. Then what we have here, this Apache appears to be outdated. Current is at least Apache for 2.4 and Apache 2.34 is the version right now, but it is old version. It is saying this PHP version is also outdated. Then web server return a valid response with the junk HTTP method. This may cause false positive. Debugging this HTTP verb may show server debugging information. Then what is it saying here? HTTP trace method is active, suggested the host is vulnerable to XST. So it is also having one more vulnerability here. So it is showing that this site is vulnerable here with multiple vulnerabilities. Now this is my own site. I have configured it with the vulnerabilities so that we can see how it looks when we scan it. So when we scan the site which is vulnerable, it will show it like this. It will show all those vulnerabilities which is available on those sites. And it is still keep scanning. So it will take a lot of time and then it will find all these vulnerabilities. I have stopped this. So because it is taking too much time. Now the next step in the hacking methodology is analyzing the web application. Now analyzing the web application, before that we were trying to attack the web server. Now on the server we have the application. So we try to analyze the web application here. Now analyze web application means we have the active application functionality and technology in order to identify the attack surface that is exposes. We can go for identifying entry points for user input. That means review the generated HTTP request to identify the user input entry points, like where user can do input, where the users have the rights to give the inputs there. Then identify the server side functionality. Observe the application revealed to the client to identify the server side structure and functionality. So whatever we see on the client side, we can see the directory structure. We can find out in the responses. We can see and we can try to identify the server side structure and functionality. Identify the server side technologies. Then fingerprint the technology active on the server using the various fingerprint techniques such as HTTP fingerprinting. So we try to see the response from the server, response of HTTPs, and try to find out the technology it is using. Then map the attack surface. Then according to that, identify the various attack surfaces uncovered by the application and the vulnerabilities that are associated with each one. So when we find out the technology and other application technology, then what we can find out, or we can map the attack surface, like what type of attack we can do on this particular application. So first, analyzing the web application, identify entry point for user input. So examine URL, HTTP header, query string parameters, post data and cookies to determine all user input fields. So we'll try to query or identify all the headers and URLs which is coming, which is the request and the query and the post data. And also cookies, determine all user input fields. Now identify HTTP headers parameters that can be processed by the application as user input, such as user agent, refer, accept language and host headers. These are the parameters which can be processed by the application. Now determine URL encoding techniques and other encryption measures implemented to secure the web traffic, such as SSL. Then what is the technology it is used? SSL for securing the web servers or web traffic. We can do this by using the same tool which is intercepting all the requests and responses. We can use the burp suite, web scrap, we can use htprint, we can use the Z-attack proxy. These tools are same. They act like a proxy, like we have seen right now burp suite. So other tools also do the same thing. We configure it as a proxy, we configure the browser to go to the proxy, and then whatever we browse in the browser, it will go to these tools like Burp Suite, and we can scrutinize all the requests and responses from there to find out what technology it is using. Identify the server-side technology. Now for identifying the server-side technology, first perform a detailed server fingerprint analyze HTTP headers and HTML source code to identify the server-side technology. Like this HTTP print tool, it is also grabbing the request and responses, as you can see here. So by using this tool or Burp Suite, we can examine the request and responses coming from the server. Then examine URLs for file extensions, directories and other identification information. When you see the URL, you will see some file names there. You may see file names or you may see the directory names also. So we can find out the extension, file extension, like it is using PHP, XML or what, and by this you can identify what? You can identify the extension. By the extension you can identify the technology, like .php means it is using PHP, XML, CSS, whatever. And by seeing the directories, we can identify the directory structures also. Then examine the error page messages. Now error pages comes when we try to send a request which is actually not present on the servers, like page not found, authentication failed, something like that. So any error comes from the server if it is not properly handled. For example, if the errors are left on the default, like if the errors are on default, so when you try to access the server, when you get the error, with that error the server will send the detailed information. So by examining the error messages, we can examine what is the server-side technologies are there. We can examine, or attacker can examine the session tokens also. Like this J session ID, that means Java. If it is ASP session ID, that means it is IIS server. If it is ASP.NET_session ID, that means it is working on ASP.NET. If it is PHP sys ID, that means it is PHP. And you can see this here in the error messages. Then identify the server-side functionality. For this, examine page source and URLs and make an educated guess to determine the internal structure and functionality of web application. We can use the tools like GNU's WebGet, Teleport or Black Widow. Now we can do it by using the examining of the URL. In the URL, if you see, this is the URL. Now in the URL we can see what is these things, like HTTPS means what? It is using SSL, it is using security. Then here if you see ASPX, that means it is using ASPX platform. Now here if you see the start date, that means it is the database column. End date, it is also a database column. Then show by, that is also a column. That means it is coming, this request is coming from it is going to the database server, and in the database server there is a table, and in the table you have rows and columns. So it is indicating this, that there is a column called start date, there is a column which is saying end date, there is a column which is saying show by name. So it is also a column. So by just examining the URL, we can get the information. Now after analyzing what? Map the attack surface now. So information what you get is the client side validation, database interaction, file upload and download, display of user supplied data, dynamic redirect, login, session state. What are the attacks we have? In the client side validation, we have attacks of injections attacks, authentication attacks. In the database interaction, we have attacks of SQL injection, data leakage. In the file upload and download, we have directory traversal attack. In display of a user supplied data, we can use a cross-site scripting attack there. Then dynamic redirects, we can use the redirection or header injection attack. In the login, we can use the user enumeration or password brute forcing. In a session state, we can do the session hijacking or session fixation attack. So on these information, we can do these attacks. Then information of injection attack, what we will get, privilege escalation or access control. Clear text communication, it will be easy for data theft and session hijacking. Error messages, information leakages. With the error messages, we can see the information leakages. Email interactions, we can do the email injection also. Application codes, it can be used to do the buffer overflow. Third party application, it will use for the known vulnerability exploitations. Web server softwares, known vulnerability exploitations. So these are the information with these attacks. So by using this information, we can map the attack with that information. Now, in the hacking methodology, we have attack authentication mechanism. Now, attack on authentication mechanism. So attacker can exploit design and implementation flaws in web applications, such as failure to check password strength or insecure transportation of credential, to bypass the authentication mechanism. That means if it is not properly designed or implemented in the web application, so attacker can check the strength and or insecure transportation, and it can do bypass the authentication mechanism. Like username enumeration, it can do verbose failure messages, predictable usernames. So if you have verbose failure messages, it can do the predictable usernames. It can show predictable usernames. Then cookie exploitation. In this, we have cookie poisoning, cookie sniffing, or cookie replay attacks. Session attacks are session prediction, session brute forcing, or session poisoning. Then for the passwords, we have password functionality exploits, password guessing, and brute force attacks. Username enumeration. Username enumeration, in this, if the login error states which part of the username and password is not correct, guess the user of the application use the trial and error method. Like for example, you see your attacker will try to use random names. Like some applications automatically generate account username based on a sequence, such as user 10101, user 102. Now attacker can determine the sequence and enumerate valid usernames. So if it has a valid username like this RINI Matthews, so it can try to use different methods here. Now if application says invalid email or username, that means username is not right. Now if the error says the password you entered is not right, that means the email address is right. That means if it is saying, when I try the random name or sequence, predict the sequence and try to use a different combination of the username, so it will say like username is not right. If I say the error like username is not right, that means user is not right. Now if it says the password and username or password is not right, that means here username is right and the password is not right. So by this, attacker can know that this is the username and this is the valid username. Now this username enumeration from verbose error messages will fail if the application implements account lockout policy. That is, lock the account after certain number of failed login attempts. So if the application developer has configured the lockout policy, that means if suppose somebody tries 3 times invalid passwords, or invalid attempts, then the account will be locked. Now when it is locked, it will not work with the right one also. So if you give the right password or username, even it will not work. So if the policy is there, then this will not work, because it is actually guessing, and it is guessing directly on the site. So it may not work if you have a lockout policy configured. Then password attacks, we have password functionality exploits. In this, password changing. Now determine password change functionality within the application by spidering the application or creating a login account. So even it can do by the spidering or scrolling the account, or scrolling the site, or even it will try to create its own account in the site. And then try the random string for old password and new password, and confirm the new password fields, and analyze errors to identify vulnerabilities in password change functionality. So it will try to see, by spidering or creating its own account, it will try to see what is the functionality there, and then it will try to do what? Try to change the password with this old, new, and confirm the new password field, and try to identify the vulnerability in the change functionality. Then password recovery. Now when we forgot the password, there is an option says forgot password. This features generally present a challenge to the user. If the number of attempts is not limited, attacker can guess the challenge answer successfully with the help of social engineering. An application may also send a unique recovery URL or existing password to an email address specified by the attacker if the challenge is solved. So what happened, it can use a recovery forgot password option also, where the application challenges the user, and it will provide different challenges, like it will show the images, maybe it will show like when you go to Facebook and you say forgot password. Previously it was saying like it will show you the random images of your account, and try to ask you that whose image is this. Now if the attacker has done the social engineering properly, so it can easily guess that what images is there, or it can easily guess the answers. Now sometimes we have three questions to solve, like if I forgot the password, it will ask me the questions, three questions: where is the city, what is your favorite what is your mother name, or something like this. Now if the attacker has properly done the social engineering, so it knows all these information about that victim, so it can easily guess, or maybe it will guess. And if it is not limited attempts configured on the application, then attacker can do unlimited guessing, and it will try to get the reset the password. And when it says reset the password, the application may say that you will get the new link on this email address, provide the email address to get the new password reset link, and then attacker will send its own email address, and then it will reset the password. Then also there is an option remember me exploit. Some users do what, they tick on that remember me option. This remember me functions are implemented using a simple persistent cookie, such as remember user as equal to JSON, or a persistent session identifier such as remember user with this ID. So attacker can use an enumerated username or predict the session identifier to bypass the authentication mechanism. So when the user do save this password by using remember me, so it is going to save as this as a session identifier or as a cookie in a simple persistent cookie, such as like remember user with the username or with the persistent session identifier number. So if the attacker is able to guess this number, then it can bypass the authentication mechanism. Then password attacks, in that we have password guessing. In password guessing, we have password list, password dictionary, and different tools to use it. Password list means attacker create a list of possible password using most commonly used passwords, and footprinting target and social engineering technique, and try each password until the correct password is discovered. So because attacker do first the social engineering and then footprinting, so it knows about the victim. It knows about the victim and try to predict and try to create a list of possible password that user can have with the most commonly used password people use, and it will try each and every password one by one until it is discovered the right password. Then it can do the password dictionary attack. In this, attacker can create a dictionary of all possible passwords using tools such as Dictionary Maker to perform the dictionary attack. So it will create the dictionary file. Now dictionary file is not a different thing. It is actually a simple text file which contains each and every name in one line, like one line for each for one name. So it will have all the names one by one. So it is not a different thing. It is just a file which contains the name line by line. So attacker use this file to perform the dictionary attack. Then we have tools to guess the password. That is, we have manually. We can do it manually, or we can use the automated tools such as Webcracker, Brutus, Bob's Insider, Tech Hydra also. These tools do what? These tools do automatically use these information, like you provide the dictionary file for the username and password, and then it will try to use each and every username and try to guess the password of that site. Then if it is not there, if the dictionary word is not successful, then the second option is to do the brute forcing. In brute forcing attack, attackers crack the login password by trying all possible values from a set of alphabets, numeric and special characters. So it will try all the possibilities, all the possible combinations of alphabetics and numerics and special characters. Now attacker can use password cracking tools such as Bob Suite, Brutus, SensePost, Crowbar. It can use all these tools to do the brute forcing on these sites, on these websites. But doing the brute force is not feasible because the time it will take to crack the password. If suppose the password is not simple, and if it is complex password mixed with numeric and alphabetic and also special characters and more than 8 characters, then it is it will be almost impossible to crack. We can say it will be almost impossible if it is more than 8 character. So brute forcing is always will be the last option for any attacker because it is not feasible basically. Then on the session attack, we have session ID prediction or brute forcing the session ID. In the first step, the attacker collects some valid session ID values by sniffing the traffic from authenticated users. Then attacker analyze capture session IDs to determine the session ID generation process, such as the structure of session ID, the information that is used to create it, and the encryption or hashing algorithm used by the application to protect it. Then vulnerable session generation mechanism that use session IDs composed by usernames or other predictable information like or can be exploited by easily guessing the valid session IDs. Now, in addition, the attacker can implement a brute force technique to generate and test different values of session ID until he successfully get access to the application. So by doing this prediction or brute forcing the session ID, attacker can hijack the session of authenticated user. So user has already authenticated. Now attacker don't want to authenticate himself, so it can try to hijack the already running session by predicting these session IDs. Now if the session ID is not generated by it is generated by the application, but it is weakly generated or it is using with the weak algorithm which can be easily predicted. So attacker first try to predict it if it is possible. Then if it is not predictable, then it will try to do the brute force. It will try to use all the combinations of this session ID. And if it is successful, then it will be successful to hijack the session. And when it is hijacking the session, it will get the access without authentication because the session is already authenticated. Then also it will do the cookie exploitation. With cookie exploitation, it can do the cookie poisoning. Now, if the cookie contains the password or session identifiers, attacker can steal the cookie using techniques such as script injection and eavesdropping. So it can do the eavesdropping by using the Burp Suite or this Zap tool. Like both are same, it will intercept all the request and response from the server, and from there it can do eavesdrop, and it will get the cookie. Or it can do the script injection. Script injection, that means it will send the malicious code to the victim, and when the victim trick the victim to trick the target to click on that link, and when the target clicks on that link, the script will execute, and that script will do what? It will hijack the session. It will capture the cookies of that machine, that user, and send to the attacker. So attacker then replay the cookie with this same or altered password or session identifier to bypass web application authentication. So again, it will do what? It will replay the cookie. That means it will regenerate the new cookie with the same cookie. It will use the same identifier or same cookie with its own IP identifier and send it to the server, and the server feels like it is the already running session. And by doing this, it will do what? Again, the attacker will try to hijack the session. And by hijacking the session, it does not have to provide the authentication again. So attacker can trap the cookie using tools such as this OWASP Zap Attack Proxy Burp Suite. So this is the Zap tool, same as the Proxy Burp Suite, which also do the same thing. Now, in a hacking methodology, web application hacking methodology, next step is to attack the authorization scheme. Authorization schemes. In that, we have the authorization attack. In this, attackers manipulate the HTTP request to subvert the application authorization schemes by modifying input fields that relate to user ID, username, access group, cost, file names, file identifiers, etc. Attacker first access web application using low privilege account and then escalate the privilege to access protected resources. So it will do what? It will first try to modify the input field of related user IDs, usernames. By doing this, first it will intercept the request and response, and then it will do what? It will try to manipulate the usernames and user group and all that. And by doing this, it can do what? Escalate the privilege. In that, it has uniform resource identifier, post data, then query string and cookies, parameter tamperings, we have HTTP headers, and hidden tags also. These are the different attacks we have in the authorization attack. First, HTTP request tampering. In this, if the query string is visible in the address bar or the browser, the attacker can easily change the string parameters to bypass the authentication mechanism. Like query string tampering, it is called query string tampering. If you can see in the header, if you can see the URL, if it is visible in the URL, like you can see here, it is saying mailbox is equal to John and company name is equal to this com, or it is saying download this PDF file, or it is saying that home and admin is equal to true, that means this user is admin. So attacker can use this web spidering tool such as Burp Suite to scan the web app or post parameters. So web app for post parameters. So it will try to get, again it will try to use the Burp Suite to intercept all the parameter, all the post request, and then try to modify the request. Or if it is visible in the URL, then it is not have to, then you don't need to do it in the Burp Suite. You can do it directly from the browser. If the application uses a refer header for making access control decisions, so attacker can modify it to access protected application functionalities. like it is HTTP header. If you see, it is the header request, get this server side, download item ID is this, and this is HTTP host this. Now in this, item ID is equal to 201, so it is not accessible as admin parameters, is set to false. So attacker can change it to true and access the protected item. So it will intercept the request and it will see that this is the item 201 here, and if it is try to access by its own account where admin is equal to false, then it will not allow it to access the item. But if the admin is equal to true, then it is allowed to access the true. So when it first, attacker will try to get this item and it will try to intercept the request, and if the intercepted request is like admin is equal to false, and because of this it is not giving the access to this item, so it will intercept the request and change admin is equal to true. And because the admin is equal to true, the application feels that the request is coming from admin and it will provide the access to this item. This is just HTTP request tampering. Authorization attack in this cookie parameter tampering also. In the first step, the attacker collects some cookies set by the web application and analyze them to determine the cookie generation mechanism. First, attacker has to determine that what is the mechanism used by the application to generate these cookies. Then the attacker trap cookies set by the web application, tampers with its parameter using tools such as this Z attack proxy or burp suite, and replay to the application. So first it will collect some cookies, try to find out the mechanism, and then what it will do, it will try to remodify, it will try to modify the cookie with its own parameters and then try to send it again to the server. Now we have, in the hacking methodology, we have session attack session management mechanism. Now session management attack, in this attacker break an application session management mechanism to bypass the authentication controls and impersonate privileged application user. It can do by the session token generation, by using session token prediction or session token tampering, or session tokens handling. By doing this man in the middle attack, session replay or session hijacking. So first it will come in the middle of the server and client, and then it will try to capture all the session IDs or cookies, and then it will modify those session IDs and do replay the session IDs to send the server with its own credentials, with its own identifications, and then by doing this it will do what? It will hijack the session of valid user. Attacking session token generation mechanism. Now first, weak encoding example. This happens when you have a weak encoding of application session token. So if the developer has generated a weak session token, then it is easy for the attacker to do prediction or session generation, session replay attacks, session ID replay attacks. This is a sample of weak encoding example. You can see this, it is saying checkout session token is like this. It is very weak here. You can see what, when it is actually hexa encoding of an ASCII string. User is equal to this, application app is equal to admin, date is equal to this. So this is actually converted into hexadecimal numbers, and if you convert it into the normal ASCII numbers, you can see this. And those sniffing tools can do that. Those sniffing tools can convert this hexa encoding to ASCII encoding, ASCII strings. And when it converts it, you can see the string. It can see the easily. Then attacker can predict another session token by just changing date and use it for another transaction with the server. Now session token prediction. Here attacker obtain valid session token by sniffing the traffic or legitimately logging into application and analyzing it for the encoding, hex encoding or base 64 or any pattern. and if any meaning can be reverse engineered from the sample of session token, attacker attempt to guess the tokens recently used in other application users. Then attacker make a large number of requests with the predicted token to a session dependent page to determine a valid session token. So again, these things are possible because if the session token generation mechanism is not perfect, not good or easy. Session token sniffing, we can do. Attacker sniff this application traffic using the sniffing tools such as Wireshark or an intercepting proxy such as Burp Suite. If HTTP proxies, HTTP cookies are being used as the transmission mechanism for session tokens, and the secure flag is not set, then attacker can replay the cookie to again unauthorized access to the application. Attacker can use session cookies to perform session hijacking, session replay, and man-in-the-middle attacks. And in the Wireshark, you can see here is the hexadecimal code, and it is converted into ASCII here. So it already shows here the hexa code, and here it will show you the ASCII string. Now in the web app hacking with the methodology, we have next step is to perform the injection attacks. Now injection attacks like input validation attacks. Now all the injection attacks is basically, we can say it is input validation attack. Now in injection attacks, attackers supply the crafted malicious input that is syntactically correct according to the interpreted language being used in order to break application's normal intent. Basically all these injection attacks will successful because the invalid input accepted. If the application is accepting the invalid input, that is input validation is not there, then these injection attacks will successful, and that is why these injection attacks also called it is also called input validation attack. We have web script injections, that if user input is used into dynamically executed code, enter crafted input that breaks the intended data context and executes command on the server. OS command injection, exploit operating system by entering malicious code in input fields if application utilize user input in a system level command. Now in the application, the web servers and applications are stored and configured on some server, some operating system. Now if the commands coming from the servers, like if attacker is sending some codes from these input fields and it is going on to the server and executing on the server application level, system level, then it can run some OS commands also. So attacker can input some OS command to execute on the server. SMTP injection, here inject arbitrary SMTP commands into application and SMTP server conversation to generate large volumes of spam mails. If suppose our web application server is also a mail server, so it can send the request through the web server vulnerability of this injection attack, and it will send the SMTP arbitrary commands. Now it is coming from this web services and it will execute on the server of on the mail server, and it can generate a large amount of spam mails also. SQL injection, it enters the series of malicious SQL entries into input fields to directly manipulate the database. Now these applications do run the queries on database servers. Now if it is not validating the queries, then attacker can directly run the queries on database servers. Then LDAP injection, they take advantage of non-validated web application input vulnerability to pass LDAP filters to obtain direct access to the database. Now if suppose the web application is configured on Active Directory servers, or if it is having a user information stored in the LDAP application or LDAP protocol, we using the LDAP protocol, and it is configured on the same server. So what happened? Attacker send the input through this vulnerability of the web application, and it will run the commands of LDAP protocol on the same server, and it can get the response. As a response, it can get the information about the users and the database. Then XPath injection, this enters the malicious strings into input fields in order to manipulate the XPath query so that it interferes with the application's logic. Logic of application, that means whenever you create any application, you will be logical, like if this and that this and something like this. So it will enter the malicious string into the input field, and it will do that to manipulate the XPath query, and for that it will use the interface with the application logic. Buffer overflow here injects a large amount of bogus data beyond the capacity of the input field, so that the buffer will be overflow, and after the buffer will overflow, then the command will be sent to the application, or malicious codes will be sent to the application. And because the buffer is overflow, the application, those malicious codes will directly execute it, and if they execute it directly without validation, then it will impact, it will run on the server and it can do lots of things. Then canonicalization, here it is manipulate variables that reference files with // to access restricted directories in the application. It is called directory traversal attacks. Now for all these injection type of attacks, we have a separate topic for it. Then we have attack data connectivity. Now attack on data connectivity. Here, number one, database connection strings are used to connect application to database engines. So we have the database server and then we have the application. Now application and database servers are connected with some connection strings. Now example of common connection string used to connect to a Microsoft SQL Server database. This is just an example, like data source. Here it will mention the server address where the database server is configured, like this Microsoft SQL Server is configured. Then port, then network library, then initial catalog, that is the database, user ID, which is used to authenticate the database server and authenticate on the database server with the password. So application will try to connect the database server by using this username and password. This is the common string. Now database connectivity attack exploit the way application connect to the database instead of abusing the database queries. So instead of abusing the queries, like instead of doing SQL injection, it will try to attack on the application connection, application's connectivity. Data connectivity attacks, that means connection string injects and connection strings parameter pollution, that is CSPP attacks, and connection pool DOS attack. These are the attacks of data connectivity attacks. In connection string injection, in a delegated authentication environment, the attacker injects the parameter in a connection string by appending them with the semicolon character. A connection string injection attack can occur when a dynamic string connection is used to build connection string based on the user input. So if suppose the user is giving the input from the web page, and based on that input it is creating the connection, like it is before injection it will be like this. So after injection, so attacker will do what? It will add extra information into that injection, into that query. It will add, like these all things are separated by semicolon. So attacker put at the end of this, it will put a one more semicolon, it will say encryption is off. Now what that means? The encryption will be off. So when the connection string is populated, the encryption value will be added to the previously configured set of parameters, that is 0. It will be off and all the communication will happen as plain text. Then connection string parameter pollution. In this attack, attacker override the parameter values in the connection string. Like hash stealing, attacker replaces the values of data source parameter with that of a raw Microsoft SQL server connected to the internet running a sniffer. So data source like this, initial catalog, integrated security, no, user ID this, raw user, server and password integrity security true. So attacker then sniff Windows credential password hashes when the application tries to connect to raw server with the Windows credentials it's running on. So it can see the hashes here for the user, and it can sniff the password hashes of the authenticated user. Then it can do the port scanning. Attacker tries to connect to different ports by changing the value and seeing the error message obtained. So it can try to change the port value here. In the connection string, it will try to change the port value. Now remember, for doing all these things, attacker has to be in the middle and has to intercept all the requests coming from client to server. And it has to intercept all the requests and responses, and by this it will try to change the port number value every time and check the error messages, what is the error messages coming. Then it can do hijacking web credentials. So attacker tries to connect to the database by using the web application system account instead of a user provided set of credentials. Like here, it will put the web application system account here. In this query string, it will change the account, user ID and password. Connection pool DOS, that is denial of service. In this, attacker examines the connection pooling settings of the application, construct a large malicious SQL query and runs multiple queries simultaneously to consume all connection in the connection pool, causing database queries to fail for legitimate user. For example, by default in ASP.NET, the maximum allowed connection in the pool is 100 and timeout is 30 seconds. So attacker can run 100 multiple queries with plus 30 seconds execution time when within 30 seconds to cause a connection pool denial of service. So such that no one else would be able to use the database related parts of the application. So it will do what? It will create malicious request, lots of requests, like it is only supporting 100 and each request remains for 30 seconds. So it will start sending the request more than 100 within 30 seconds, and then it will fill all the pools, and then what? Legitimate user is also not able to access the site. Then in this methodology we have web attack web app client. That means attack on the clients. Now attack web app clients. Now attacker interact with the server side application in unexpected ways in order to perform malicious actions against the end user and access unauthorized data. It can do cross-site scripting, HTTP header injection, ROG, request forgery attack, privacy attack, redirection attack, frame injection, session fixation, ActiveX attacks. Then attack web services. Attack web services work atop the legacy web application, and any attack on web services will immediately expose an underlying application's business and logic vulnerabilities for various attacks. For example, if you attack on web services, so from the client side, web services client, SOP injection, XML injection it will do here. Then on these technologies, different technologies, WSDL probing attack can be happen. On these databases, information leakage and application logic attacks can happen. And on the database systems, we have these database system here, application management server and identity management server here. Database attacks and denial of service attacks can happen. Web services probing attack. First, probing attack. In the first step, the attacker traps the WSDL document from web service traffic and analyze it to determine the purpose of the application, functional breakdown, entry point and message types. Attacker then creates a set of valid requests by selecting a set of operations and formulating the request messages according to the rules of the XML schema that can be submitted to the web services. Attacker uses these requests to include malicious contents in SOAP request and analyze error to gain a deeper understanding of potential security weaknesses. So attacker do what? Try to probe the web services by sending the malicious codes or malicious queries. Attacker inject arbitrary characters in the input field. So where there is an input field, it will try to inject arbitrary code, like it will put the comma. double quote. Now server throws an error. Server will throws the error. It says about this and that, and in that it will show the information about that services. Then SOAP injection. Attacker inject malicious query string in the user input field to bypass web services authentication mechanism and access backend databases. This attack works similarly to SQL injection attack. This is same as SQL injection attack. Here attacker do input, it will add some information, some arbitrary values here in the input field, and by this it can gain the access of the server side, or it can gain the access of backend databases. And it is same as SQL injection. Here when it is sending this type of query, it is going on to the server and it is getting the response like this. Then in this service attack there is XML injection. Attacker injects the XML data and tag into user input fields to manipulate the XML schema or populate XML database with bogus entries. XML injection can be used to bypass the authorization, escalate privileges, and generate web service denial of service attack. XML is actually the programming, the language to create the web pages, like we have HTML. So in this it will try to insert malicious code, like here we have the input field, username, password and email address. So instead of email address it will put the query like XML query here. Now that query will be inserted with the request here. In the server side it will show like this. This is the query, this is the username, this is the password query, and here it is adding the extra one here. It is saying the username Jason, password is attack, user ID is this and email ID is this. Creates new user account on the server. So just giving this whole query it will add here in this input field, and it will create a new user there. Then web service parsing attack. Parsing attack exploit vulnerabilities and weaknesses in the parsing capabilities of XML parser to create denial of service attack or generate logical errors in web service request processing. In this we have recursive payloads. Attacker queries for web services with the grammatically correct SOP document that contains infinite processing loops, resulting in exhausting of XML parser and CPU resources. And it will be like a denial of service. It will create a loop in the query, so it will keep processing and keep processing and keep processing, and it will go into denial of service. Oversized payloads. Attackers send a payload that is exclusively larger to consume all systems resources, rendering web service inaccessible to other legitimate users. So it can send the oversized payload or oversized exclusively large to consume all system resources. Web service attack tools we have, like these SOAP UI and XML spy. We can do this. We can use this SOAP UI is a web service testing tool which supports multiple protocols such as SOAP, REST, REST, HTTP, JMS, AMF and JDBC. Attacker can use this tool to carry out web services probing, SOP injection, XML injection and web service parsing attack. Similarly, we have XML spy. This Altova XML spy is the XML editor and development environment for modeling, editing, transforming and debugging XML related technologies. So this is what we have web app hacking methodology. We have these different hacking methodologies. We have different tools to do these hacking methodologies.